All right, welcome back, everybody. This is, it's still technically the outdoor burrito. We haven't came up with a new name for it yet. Well, that's because you guys really haven't given us any better suggestions than the outdoor burrito. We've had some good ones. But we have a very special guest today. A very, very special one from a land far, far away. From the land down under. Isn't there a song like that?
I came from a land down under.
There you go. I was hoping someone was going to do it. I couldn't quite get the right beat for it. And we are just coming off of our 5th Elite Series event of the season here at Lake Fork. I don't even remember what place you finished. 30-something. 31st. Nearly 20-something. Well above middle of the pack. But he has one of the coolest stories out of anybody in the entire bass fishing world, and probably had to work the hardest and arguably possibly spend the most money just to stay in this country. So we're going to get a lot of that coming up here soon. But with no further ado, everybody, welcome in one of my best friends, Carl Jocumsen. Jocumsen.
Welcome, dude.
Where's the clap thing? It
No,
should have been.
we need like a.
No, not that one.
Well, the problem is
roaring crowd.
we don't podcast enough to exactly remember which ones are
That
which.
was
And I
technically
don't
just
have
a
them
guess.
labeled.
Yeah. Carl seemed to know where that one was.
Yeah, he just got lucky on that one. He's used to hearing that one when he says some joke.
Yeah. Anything.
But yeah,
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
You're
I want to
awesome.
kind of talk about. We'll get into your story later, but I want to talk about your week here at Lake Fork because we talk every single day during practice, and I knew what you were doing. You knew what I was doing, and they were really two completely different things
Yeah.
going into this event, which kind of speaks to how Lake Fork was fishing this week. It was when I did the interviews kind of pre-game going up to this with some of the writers for Bassmaster, they were having a hard time understanding what I was talking about when I said it's going to fish very small and very spread out.
Yeah.
And they couldn't grasp that concept. But what I was meaning by that is that you have all these fish that are doing different things, but there's going to be groups of guys that are fishing shallow on top of each other, guys that are fishing deep on top of each other,
Yeah.
and then guys that are fishing in that mid-depth zone that are also going to be sharing water.
Yeah.
So you have these different groups, so it spreads the field out somewhat evenly, but not all the fish are doing one thing, and so there's not enough of them to spread out those groups of guys
Yeah.
amongst them. And I saw that on the deeper bite side of things, where a lot of the places I wanted to fish, I didn't have enough places where I could just run to and not have a boat on them.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to Josh Douglas probably on the next podcast. And he was one of the guys that was on one of my favorite places after practice. And I never fished it until day 4 of the tournament, but we'll talk to him about that later. Did you see that on the pattern? So kind of go into how you approached Lake Fork, what you had found, kind of like how you got on that. And then did you see that setup, like where you were sharing water with guys doing a similar thing?
Yeah. I probably, I think like everything was concerning because of like how quickly I know these fish just go like from 1 foot of water to like 30, like see you later. Like I seen it happen from years and years ago. And even when I was here, when you guys fished the TTBC and just everything I'd follow, I'm like, these fish just kind of just want to get out of there. They're just like gone. And then, so we get record high heat, all week. And so everything was just lining up to be like, the fish are just going to be deep 100%. But it's sort of known that like there's only it's not like a lake where there's just all these sneaky spots and a ton of different stuff that you can find yourself. It just seems to be very community almost a little bit, to where unless you had those couple sneaky ones, you're going to end up on top of each other.
Mhm.
And so my heart wasn't in to get in amongst that as much, because I just don't know the lake well enough offshore, don't have enough spots in Arsenal. So I kind of like, my heart was like, find something different. And then I don't know what day I found the jig bite, but I got up shallow and I saw bluegill beds.
Day 2 probably,
Yeah,
right?
that day 2. Saw some bluegill beds, saw fish up shallow, found that like wolf pack, big one ate a top water, had like 10 big ones with it. So I started realizing like there's still fish shallow, and it had gotten hot water temperature, and then they were staying there. And then I'd seen enough bluegill that were staying there. But the big one was day 2. I got out on this bit of a deeper sort of hump, lot of timber, and there was fry all over the tops of the stumps. So I started to put together that the bass had only just spawned really, and there was nowhere else. There was nowhere for them to put their fry. So they'd put the fry on the tops of these stumps in like from 18 feet to 6 feet. There was just balls of fry around the tops of these stumps. And then I caught 2 fish before I kind of seen that. I just flipped a 3/4 inch jig up, and it just like sort of never hit the bottom. I caught an 8 and a 4, and I'm like, okay, there's something to this. And then I seen bluegill swim up the
Mhm.
tree, eat the fry, and swim back down. And that's when it clicked. I was like, okay,
So you think they're bass fry?
yeah, that's what. Yeah, I think they were eating the hunt. It had to be. That's what it
Yeah.
looked like. It was big clouds, and I don't think they were guarding them. I think they'd put them there. There might be the odd one guarding them, but
Yeah.
from waving on live, they were sitting down about 7 feet. And so it was all. I was putting it all together with live and everything, because you could see the fry, the bluegill are eating the fry, and then the bass are sitting down there 8 feet below
Yeah.
them, just waiting for that bluegill to go a little bit too far, or they probably just come up when they want to feed and eat one.
It's almost like a bait and switch. They like put their fry there.
Yeah.
So the bluegill would come,
Yeah.
and then they're eating the
Sorry,
bluegill.
suckers. You thought you were winning. Now this is what it was, a trap.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
a trap.
It's entrapment.
And so like I loved to put that together, to be like, that's what's happening. You know, like I hate when you're sort of finding something, you're like, why are these fish here? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Where I was able to be like, this is a thing. And then once I started to go and go and go, I started to get more and more dialed in with it. And you know, you were finding small, those sneaky spots and catching them offshore, and I was just like, I just couldn't get it enough to where I was like, even if I find a couple, I don't know if I'm going to get there. Then I'm going to get
Yeah.
into it with whoever's there. It's going to be rough, and then where do I go? And then so I just kept expanding on what I'd found, different areas where the fish were, and then I realized I could do it all over the lake, and I just got dialed in enough where I was kind of like, this is what I'm going to do. And then the sort of what would you say, the spanner got thrown when the wind came. That's when it threw it all off. I would have had
Yeah.
a much better tournament, and
When the what came?
the wind
No, what did you say before that? The
threw a spanner.
Spanner?
Threw
I
a
heard the
spanner in it.
spanner, too. Is that an Aussie
Like
word?
that is 100% an Aussie term. What does that mean?
Like threw a wrench in the
Okay.
wrench.
Yeah,
Threw
there's
a
going to be a
wrench
lot
in
of those
it,
in this.
So I
I've
threw
spent a lot
wrench
of
in
time
it.
with him, and
You
I
hadn't
haven't
heard
heard
spanner?
I haven't heard spanner.
You've heard
no.
bitumen and not
yeah,
spanner.
Yeah, yeah, that's a new
So-
one.
Yeah, so what happened during the tournament is the wind basically came, blew, 25 to 30, and then it made it. I was getting inside thick timber. I think it blew the fry away. The bluegill moved, but like the weirdest thing that I don't know what happened, and you might even know more, is what happened is I'd figured out that the fish were on the timber between like 15 and like 10 feet was kind of the shallower. They were sort of like in that deeper one, they were suspended. And day one, I'm not catching them. I'm not, and none of the areas that I'd caught them in. Can't catch a fish. And then I slide up shallower and shallower. I get to like 6 feet, and I hook a 6-pounder, and it jumps off. And then I'm like, because it got off, that's one weird thing that we all go through is like you miss a fish, you lose it, and then you seem to like, if you landed it, you would have continued onto that pattern and got all this confidence, you lose
Yeah.
it. You're like, I think it was kind of just a fluke.
Yeah.
For some reason, you're just like, well, it got off. It was just a random one. Then you don't. And so I flipped like a dozen more 6-foot trees and went, okay, back out to 10 feet where I should have flipped 150 trees at 6 foot. And
Yeah.
I would have got back onto it again. And so end up scrambling that day and catching 15 pounds, and I'm sitting in 63rd. And so day 2 comes around, same wind, same everything, and I start getting into that pattern of like trying to find that offshore bite. And in my mind, if I'm not going for the win, like I don't even want to be fishing. That's how I've always had it. I'm like, I have to be doing something that's going to win right now. I need to catch 30 pounds and get back in this.
Yeah.
And that has hurt me probably more times than helped me, but it's also helped me win my one that not many people
Yeah.
get to do and things like that. But this is the switch that changed. It was 1:30 and I was like, I had 3 fish.
And this
and
is
I'm
day
like,
2?
This is day 2.
Yeah,
So
and
now I'm
Day
looking.
1, you lost the 6.
Yeah.
Weighed like 14 pounds.
Yeah, almost 15.
What
So
place
I'm
were you sitting in day 1?
63rd.
63rd.
Yeah. So I'm like close to the bottom of the pack. And now it's day 2, same conditions. I've run a lot of different stuff, fished my jig stuff, caught 3, lost another big one. So I had 3 bites on the jig. But then in my mind, I was like, the only way to catch 30 is like get off the bank, catch them on a deep crankbait, like find them. So now I'm jumping, I'm looking, I'm jumping around, I'm fishing half the lake, and I'm doing all these things that I'm like not confident in, but I know this is how it's probably going to get one. And if I can just get lucky and find this school, like it can happen in 2 seconds. And then it just hit me. I'm like, I've just done this so many times where this one event has like put me back into a hole where like I should have just finished the limit. Like what do you call it? Not laying up, but like knowing that this
Damage
isn't your
control.
one. This isn't your one to
Yeah.
win. You're not on it. Save this one now and get back in the game. And I was like, every single cast I was making, I just didn't even know if I was going to catch a bass. But when I was flipping a jig, I had the gut feel like this can just, I know what I'm doing. If there's a bass there, I know how to snap it and get one to eat. And there is fish still doing it. And so it's 1:30, I'm doing at 3:20. And I just bail on everything. I go, I'm going to catch my limit now, and I'm going to save this tournament and have like a top 50, still decent points, get a decent check. But if they bite, I can jump in there.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't just fully just giving up. I'm like, no, I'm going to still have a go.
No,
but
you're making an educated
move.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm confident in. This is what I feel like gives me the best opportunity to catch the most weight possible today.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause I'm not doing it offshore. I'm looking. I'm not finding it. I'm not, for whatever reason, like you're just not finding those offshore fish. There weren't that many of them. And I like, that's to me like watching your career and then watching this event and living it kind of with you, because I hear the stories and like how it processes in your mind, was probably to me one of your biggest turning points in your career. You know, even though you've already like won a blue trophy, but to have that mindset to say, okay, like I'm not like, I've dug myself in a hole and I'm gonna dig myself out of it. The crazy part is that you did it doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like day 1, day 2. I think the biggest lesson is, and we talked about this, I think even after day 2, and I'll let you keep going to your story because it'll explain it more, but like paying attention to those clues, whether you land that fish or not on day 1. That 6-pounder,
yeah, that was the lesson learned.
Like that was the clue.
Yeah.
But it didn't click.
They told me like, here I am. And I'm like, you know, you're still something was like, you had such a good practice that it's like, no, they're out there intended. This is where they were. Like
the funny thing about that is, and I just now thought of this, I didn't think about it earlier. But if we go back to the last elite event at Chickamauga on day 1, it's essentially the exact opposite story of you and I in this event. Right? Because day 1 there, I lost a giant on the glide.
What,
first thing. And you land a 7+ first thing, and then you just go glide the rest of the day, and you weigh 24+ pounds.
No doubt that this is in the deal.
'em.
Like I'm throwing this rest of the day. There's nothing's gonna stop me.
Yeah,
like
this is what I'm doing, and then you crush them, and
you
I'm
get
like,
the same bite,
maybe they're not
lose
biting
that bite, and be like, they're not biting it that good. Like that's why it came off, or like it's just got that one lucky bite and it fell off, so it didn't mean anything. I don't know what it is about losing that fish. It's happened so many times to so many people that it just you lose your confidence in whatever that is.
Yeah. So here you are. You have 3 bass.
Yeah.
You have 2 hours left to weigh in.
Yeah.
You're sitting in the 60s in this event, and so like what, like you made that decision, but like was that because you felt like your back was against the wall? Like was it this event? Was it the season? Like the overall points? Like what was that deciding factor that ultimately just said like this is what, like I need to go do this?
Yeah, I think it was like I was like, this is how I know how to catch a bass.
Yeah.
That's what was the sign. I'm like, go and do what you know how to go and catch a bass. I know if I do this for the next 2 hours, I'm going to get 2 more bites.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're
not caught up in the rest of the doc talk. Like what,
Everything
I don't care
else,
what everyone else is doing.
And even that hurt me a little bit. Just not dock talk, just Lake Fork. Like
the history.
It was supposed to be. It was going to look like tuna fishermen, just like just flicking him into the boat, And I'm like, you're flipping a jig and you're not getting a bite for a long time. You're like, your mind just going, they're crushing them, they're crushing them, they're crushing them. Where like should have just slowed down and did my thing, and I lost like that little bit of confidence, even though that 6-pounder tried to tell me that they were up a little bit shallower. So it was just like, don't bomb this tournament trying to win it when it's not even really winnable for me where I'm at, and I'm good in the points. I'm the best I've like almost ever been in the points. Now it's like just get back in and save this tournament so we can just get back rolling again. And so it's that thing of like when you're fishing, like you're like wondering if you're going to get a bite. As soon as I was flipping a jig, I'm like, I'm going to get a bite. It's a different, it's a different feel. So like I felt comfortable. I was like, okay, just fish like this because I feel confident fishing like this to the end. If I crank and do all this stuff and I don't get a bite, I knew that's kind of how I decided. At the end of this day, am I going to be mad that I tried to find crank and fish that I hadn't found in 3 days of practice and I tried to do it in the last 3 hours of a tournament? Or am I going to be like, I did what I know how to do and had figured out and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I'll be happier with that because so that's what I went and did. And jumped around the corner. I fished all new water, nothing that I'd fished. I just started fishing new water and I just like thought about it, slide in pockets, closest to the main lake, fish working their way out of the pockets, found the biggest trees, slid up to 6 feet of water and then found a good tree, pitched up there, snapped it. And what I was seeing is the fish were following the jig to the bottom, but they weren't eating it. And then I figured out to like snap it in front of their face, get a reaction bite. And did that, and I caught a 5.15, and then like it's just like a light bulb goes off. So it went click, and it was like I blinked and I had 25 pounds.
Yeah, the light bulb went off and felt just like that bite.
Yeah,
bite you felt in your hand. That light bulb went off in your head, and you're like, and here we go,
and it's on.
Yeah, and that's what I needed.
Now
to
it's
do.
on.
Yeah,
and literally I just went. I looked up and I seen the biggest stump in that whole line, and I pitched at everything pretty quick, and I got to that, and I just eased up to it, slowed up, and I just made the perfect cast, got to the bottom, snap, donk, 4.11, put in the bottom, weighed it, jumped over the other side, worked my way along, saw a big stump, eased up to it, threw it, caught another 5.15. Like it was the funnest bite, and then I'm just having a blast, and you're just having fun, you're just fishing, and like everything happens then. And nearly 25 pounds, and jumped into 33rd and made the cut.
Caught him again day 3, and jumped up a couple more places,
and finished 31st. Jumped up in AOY, got a good check, like things are rolling. It's like
all because
crazy.
of that one decision.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like you could have you turn right and you make the right decision. You turn left and it's the wrong one, and you miss it. I mean, did you have a lot of guys fishing that, like, there were a lot of guys doing that similar pattern. I've seen guys posting videos of fish catches. There were actually way more guys doing that than what I had expected.
I know. They got onto it on the final day.
But
It was like 2 days of idling for everyone, and I'm like, I've got this to myself. Like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. Like, I was having the best practice ever, like everywhere in the afternoons, and you were getting bites in the afternoons too, like kind of everyone was.
Yeah.
But like in the afternoons, I was like, this is getting stupid. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to shake fish off, and they're breaking me off, and it's just getting crazy. But then that day 3, everyone was the people that were like, I haven't found anything. I need to go fishing. They all flipped timber and they went donk, 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 all got bites. And I was like, I could see them doing. I'm like, I'm not going to have it. But there's just so much in here that me doing it day 1 and day 2 instead of idling all those days got me way more dialed in than what they did. Like, I understood that the bluegill were on the trees, the fry were there. Like, I'd found all of that, so my confidence was like higher, and I'd figured the snap bite, the reaction, all of that, 1/2 ounce in the shallow water, 3/4 ounce out deeper, the trailer, the color. Like,
you knew why.
I knew why and when, and I had the confidence in my setup, because there was flippers and jig fishermen that didn't catch them, that should be, you know what I mean? That like had really bad events that did that the whole time. But like, they had missed those little clues and just flipped timber and weren't doing exactly, you know, what they were doing. Those fish biting early in practice got me clued in, like how many fish were there and why they were doing it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's interesting to hear you talk about like that confidence too. Like, as an angler, like being confident in what you found, but also that balance of like being able to adapt. But you know what I mean? Like, there's a fine line of being confident in what you have, but then when you see other guys doing something else or like success, and like you see in the weight line, you know, someone's doing something else different than you, kind of like creeps into your head how like the psychological side of fishing is like, am I really doing the right thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but then you
exactly.
also like, you kind of went back to the adapting bit too, by understanding like, oh, okay, I can like bump over to this and kind of figure out how to fish that a little different. The snap, those kind of things. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's like all confidence, you know, that's what it is. It's like, whatever you choose, do it with everything you've got, like with every bit of confidence. Like, no matter what you choose to do it with every bit of confidence. Because if you do it half-heartedly and try and it just doesn't work. Like, you just, you know, just,
and the history too. You know, like you had brought that up, the history of Lake Fork, of like what it's capable of.
Yeah, you know, like
how fast you can catch them offshore. Like, they move offshore in these giant groups.
And it's 95 degrees and you're flipping in 6 foot of water. You're like, what am I doing right now? Like,
some of the guys caught them shallower than that.
Yeah, like they caught them way up on the bank.
I talked to Matt Heron this morning. He said he caught his 22 pounds on day 2 in a foot of water.
Yeah.
But I was trying to wrap my head around, like, okay, why did that happen? Right? Because all the signs lead, like, if you read the book, you're like, everything's going deep.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how did that happen, or why did that happen? Why did those fish continue to move shallow? And the only thing that I can figure out is that we had a full moon.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that held some fish shallow. There were still kind of that last wave of late spawners happening. So some of those fish were probably spawning around some of those shallower trees, right? 6 foot or less were probably some of those last spawners with that full moon. And then I think that also created, you had like the tail end of the shad spawn. Yeah. So those fish were using those trees kind of as like the first place. But then you also had this group of fish that had spawned super early on, had moved out. And then I think you had kind of the beginning of the brim bed deal happening, where you had this full moon and you had this kind of wave of bluegill
eaters
that were moving up to spawn, and some of your biggest bass in the entire lake are going to be those bluegill eaters.
Yep.
You know,
that's what Swindle caught.
Yeah, it may not be
29-pound bags off one bluegill bed.
May not be your biggest population of fish in the lake, but a lot of your biggest ones do. And when you're on a place like Lake Fork, well, you need big ones, right? You need that bigger than average size fish.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the only thing that I could make sense of it, right? Is like you had enough fish that were still held up shallow that it and enough like scenarios going on that some of those fish came back and some of them just never left all the way because things were a little bit behind and later. and it's amazing to see how many guys, like there were more 7+ pound fish caught flipping trees than there was winding a crankbait out deep.
Yeah, it's crazy
For sure.
in 95-degree heat.
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah, just up there in the dirt, ready to eat. But what was mind blowing to me is that when I was here in April, every one of those fish you saw on those trees would eat a glide bait.
No.
But you come back a month later, they're still positioned very similar.
Yeah.
But they just follow it.
Yeah.
Won't eat it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I just threw one glide. I mean, I tried different sizes, colors, different shapes. I mean, different sink rates, like different retrieves, everything. And they just
why is that?
Not react.
Is it
like
just the
thing that I've like learned and like that I know is how much fish get dialed into what they're eating is those bluegill were going up and down. And so they know that bluegill aren't swimming away off that tree. If they do, they'll get eaten. They don't want to, bluegill aren't going to leave the tree. So they're going up and eat up and down. So those fish are used to that. When the thing swims away, they just let it go.
Yeah.
Because the food's coming on top of them. So a lot of people ask them, why didn't you swim a jig or do this? It's like anything that was moving across ways, they would follow it for a second, then head back to the tree. But if it fell on their head, that was a bluegill that went a little bit too far, and it was an easy meal, and they just ate it.
had to move vertical.
Yeah, so it was a vertical presentation because that's what the bluegill were doing. It's just like crazy. Like that's how dialed in. Before when Brandon was here a month ago, shad were probably passing the tree and they were racing out off the tree and eating it. So when the glide went, they got it, and then a month later things changed where the bluegill are coming down on top of them, so they're not willing to swim off the tree.
So crazy. Something. It's weird how like fish, like we don't understand, like I don't at least understand the psychology, but like they do recognize patterns of like what is easier, what is the bait that they want to eat.
Well, they're an opportunistic feeder,
yeah,
right? And they're just a product of their environment, and that's one of the hardest things for people to adjust to. Usually is the fact that like we live our lives in such a different way than what they do, right? Our lives are based off of a 365-day a year calendar and a 24-hour time clock, where that's not theirs, right? Like their lives are based on the sun goes up and the sun goes down and whatever Mother Nature throws them, right? And so they're constantly adapting every hour just to survive based on whatever those conditions are thrown at them. And so you can't look at it and say, oh, well, it's the third week of May in East Texas. I have to go do this.
Yeah.
Because 2 months ago, it may have been freezing cold. And so that delayed everything. And so now the third week of May is actually more like the last week of April. And, so you have all of these factors that happen hourly, but then there's also like the weekly weather factor into it, and like did that dirty up the water, did you have wind or rain, and then you have like the factors in the last month and within the last year, and there's so many variables that they're constantly adjusting to that we're not accustomed to.
We just go to the fridge and it's there.
And it's just in their everyday life.
We go to the grocery store and it's available. The thing about a largemouth is like I've caught different species, all over Australia and here. The largemouth to me is like they only think about food and they set themselves up in the exact position by the minute for exactly where they need to be to make themselves like the ultimate predator. That's what I love about them. Like they don't wait for the weather to pass and then eat or whatever. They're like, wind's blowing here. And that's what makes them most annoying. Same with smallmouth. Is because like just the wind changing makes them go, now I'm going to go over here and set up here because this is way more perfect. And then it's like cloud cover, shallow. And then it's like sun comes out, pile up on this little spot. It's like ultimate position to get ultimate food like every single minute of the day.
Yeah. They're going to make babies for 3 days.
Yeah.
And they're going to eat
the rest
for 362.
And then you guys have to try to solve that problem.
Yeah.
We're pretty much mathematicians.
I want to go that far, but
we're all like
at least for Carl,
calculus majors,
scientists,
pretty much something like that. Scientists, biologists,
pretty much the smartest like human being that you can
Yeah.
get if you had to break it down.
Maybe that's why you couldn't catch a bass yesterday.
We're not
in
gonna
that-
go
in
into.
that
We're not gonna
school.
go into that.
Let's talk about that.
No.
That massive school
That was
that we
eating every
found.
single cast.
I think
Yeah,
I just had
that
the
was
wrong
fun.
bait.
So
Me and Brandon had a good time.
I had this offshore, I had a little offshore spot that I found that I was starting on every day, and I caught them pretty good. But the final day, they didn't really want to cooperate. They weren't really there in the morning. Came back in the afternoon, and it was like, voila, there they are. Well, I broke off a 4.5 pounder. I lost another big one in the last 20 minutes, and they just they were there. They were just sitting there. I see them on my Mega 360, and I was so mad. I don't know if mad's the right word. I was just like,
If they
I
bit,
was
you
like-
could win.
yeah, I
If
was
they
like
bite,
frustrated,
it's
and
the
it
winning
was just
fish
like-
are sitting there.
yeah,
look,
I could
like,
see them. They were there, and I just literally ran out of time, and that was so hard to swallow. I'm just looking at it, like the door was wide open, and I just ran out of enough. It was just the door was too far away. I couldn't step through it fast
Yeah.
enough, and so I'm like, all right,
We got revenge.
yeah, we're going back to get revenge on them suckers. So we go out there, and like Carl said earlier, the fish, hands down, no doubt, the fish bite better on this lake from 6 o'clock to dark.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, every day, like
Yeah.
I pretty much found every place that I fished after 6 o'clock. It was like I'd idle all day and find nothing, and then you'd be like, "Oh, hey, look at that school of bass after 6 o'clock," almost every single day.
Crazy.
And well, we went back, took Kyle out there. Me and Carl started catching them. A lot of really big ones. We caught like 33 pounds in 30 minutes. And I mean, I kept pointing like, "Hey, Kyle, there's the school right there." I'd stick my rod on my Mega 360 so you could see, like, "Hey, there's the school." And he's watching both of us cast and reel in these 6 and 6.5 pounders. How many did you catch out of that school?
To be honest, I caught 0. But listen,
But there's always a but.
but no one technically caught any bass off that crankbait that I had. You caught a white bass, which I'm going to narrow it down to the crankbait was faulty. I had the faulty. I picked the one out of the third of the crankbaits on the deck that just
had
was
options.
wrong.
Then he picked up the good one though for a little bit.
Yeah, but
Remember? 'Cause then you
but
were
no one
fishing.
ever got a bite then either after that.
We'd already
So it's
caught
like,
them all.
they just they bailed. They said, "You know what? Like we know."
We hurt.
Yeah. There was
We
a
just
solid
got
minute. It
beaten.
was like legit, like Carl would cast, catch one, Brady'd cast, catch one, I'd cast, reel it in, wouldn't catch one.
Shoulders
I would
burning.
just see these guys catching like 6-pound fish, and like I would just be like reeling and be like, all right, here it comes. It's just gonna be a second. As my arm's
Any
about to
minute.
fall off from deep cranking. I've never deep cranked, and I don't know if my delt or my wrist hurt more today, but yeah, it was kind of humiliating. There was one point Brandon was on the phone, and this was the best part. Brandon was on the phone.
I was
Carl
talking,
that was a
talking
big
to
one.
Tiff.
yeah, he was. Yeah, you were talking to Tiff.
I was talking to Tiff.
And Brandon hooks
I
a
was throwing
fish.
a spoon.
You had a spoon. And hooks the fish, and Carl's tied up, and I'm on the back deck
I'm
or
retying
something.
or
He's
something.
retied. And he hooks the fish and then looks for someone to hand the rod to.
You can't
And
wind it.
he can't wind it in because he's on the phone with Tip and didn't want to like be rude. And he hands it off to Carl, and he was like, "It's a big one, it's a big one." And I just remember I was like, "Jesus, this is the most comical thing I've seen."
And I stayed sitting down and
Yeah.
just wound it in.
Didn't even stand
Yeah.
Oh,
Just thanks for that. This is fun.
It wasn't even a bass, so I snagged a crappie.
It's
Yeah.
crazy how fast that stuff happens, though.
Yeah.
Like
And
you
even-
said, you show up like 30 minutes. If you just showed up, you know what I mean? Like you just showed up to the tournament, and like 30 minutes later, they're just like, "All right, we're done."
Yeah. And
Even
it
like-
happened in the tournament like that too.
Yeah, like confidence wise with stuff is like I didn't catch fish on a deep crank or crankbait all week, and then like Brandon just makes the cast, and that's what like makes you a good angler is being able to just be like, I know what to do, and just like you see you catch one, and then be able to like cast and get
Yeah.
it down there and be like, bang, got one, big one.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a confidence thing as well.
But it's interesting to like sticking to your guns too, like with what you did and understanding, hey, salvage this. And that's like a very
Yeah.
mature thing as like an angler, I'm sure. And it's hard one to swallow because you're like, I know I can get bites this way. I won't win the tournament,
Yeah.
but I know I could do. And maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if some magical happened and it just came together, but it's
Yeah,
like,
you never know.
you knew you could catch fish that way. And I've seen Brandon do this too, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can watch live when I'm on the boat and I know people are doing something different. And Brandon's just continually sticking to it. And I'm like, gosh, like, I
Yeah.
wish he'd do this, but obviously I can't say anything. And like, but he sticks to his guns and he'll finish it out.
Yeah.
And he'll and that's a benefit, which is like wild to see, because it's just like, and I think that comes over time too. And you do it, like, there is like one of those things where it's like cool to see that like confidence and like, hey, this is how you finish a season, not just a tournament.
The long game. Like, that's what it is like, it's like short-sighted will get you hurt like way too much. Like, it's like thinking about that long game, thinking about not even the classic next year, but like in 2 years, points, 5 years, like, what is this like gonna do? Like, it's just instead of trying to win that thing right then and there and like that day or whatever it is, and just trying to like hero it, and it's a rare thing when that actually happens. It's like it's in everything. It's every career, everything that I've done. It's like, it's who can endure the over that long amount of time. And it's not about that one tournament. And I've realized like now that like no one even cares, no one thinks about it, and I can't even remember the last time, like, but the last really bad tournament I had that I was super upset with. It's just like, it just gets washed away in a week. It's gone, and like, who cares? And then you're like, you got to have such a short memory in this game, because even 2 weeks ago, I was on the top of the world leading Chickamauga, and then like just bang, I blinked and I'm 63rd with my back against the wall going, oh my God, like I'm down again. Like, what? And I don't know how to catch a bass. My pattern's gone away. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so it's that short memory of just like back at it.
Do you think that confidence is something that's like fortified over time? Because like I see like older anglers, like there's like something about, or like more mature anglers that have been, you know what I mean? Like they fished 20 something years in the elites or something. And they have that like confidence that it's, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like sometimes it's easy. They don't get as razzled as easy. They have that mindset that like it will, regardless of how this tournament is, you could lose, you could come in last place on this tournament, and the next tournament is like your thing and it all works.
Yeah. It's situational.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk about like the light bulb goes off, or we talk about it's like a math equation, right?
Yeah.
And so in a tournament, you're all given 8 hours. Well, whose light bulb goes off the quickest usually is the guy that's the most successful, right? Or at least has a really good event. And over time, those math equations become easier and easier because you've seen them over time.
Yeah.
Right. When you were a little kid and someone asked you what's 2 + 2, it was really hard to figure out. Right. You might have said 22.
More for Carl than any of us. But
I mean, between Carl and Vandy, like, it's a little difficult. But now someone asks, 2 + 2, Kyle.
4.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Can me and Carl do like a competition on who's smarter here?
A bass decathlon.
Yeah. Running, ping pong, dips, fishing.
What did I win?
You haven't won at any of those things that he just listed.
I won something recently. What did I win? It was like yesterday or something.
Pretty hard to think of.
Chocolate.
I thought I was gonna win at the. I had one fish and you had no fish at that time. And then
you thought you were gonna win at fishing out of all
out of all those things. You thought you had a chance.
For like a solid hour. I had I got
a lead.
super lucky with a crankbait, and then we rolled at that spot, and Carl got
just annihilated
maybe 20 more than I did.
It's like you walked right off a cliff.
Yeah, it was brutal.
But I think that's, just to use that as an analogy, like those math problems, those equations, those variables become easier to figure out. They become more second nature.
Yeah. You've had more experience.
Yeah, through that experience and that time on the water, you're able to look at it and say, this is what I need to go do.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't second guess it. You just have an understanding of what's happening on a body of water.
Yeah. This is what I've got to do to get this done.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying, like, I felt like it was a really cool turning point in your career. I felt like just watching it from the outside, but also having a little bit of an insider viewpoint from talking to you of like how it was going. but then listening to you talk through it, and then listening to you talk through it again here, of just being able to make that decision to kind of use the damage control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To say like,
100%.
hey, this,
Yeah.
I just need to salvage this. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I'm not going to say that you didn't find the winning fish,
Yeah.
because you're catching the right
Yeah.
size, but you had gotten yourself in a position after day one that you weren't in a position to win at
Yeah.
that time. So it's like, okay, how do I make the most out of this event?
Yeah.
And those are small wins, right?
Yeah.
Like those are things that build momentum and build that
Yeah.
confidence. And I think that's like those things start to compound over time, right?
Yeah.
And so, but when people are looking at the leaderboard, like they never know, like they're like, if you finish
Yeah.
in the 20s or 30s, or like
Yeah.
a dude could finish 12th every single event and nobody would know that he had a really good year until at the end of the year when he won AOY.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. 100%.
Like that's how it works. You can win one event and bomb the rest, and everyone's like, man, you had a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
That was an awesome year.
Yeah. No, and
Great
that's,
year, mate.
That's what 100% what I realized with why not worrying about what people are thinking. A lot of guys get caught up in it like that, are rookies or just getting there like, oh man, everyone thinks I suck. I'm like, trust me, no one cares like that, how you're doing, because I usually have one or two really good events every year, no matter what, like no matter how bad a season. And all anyone's ever mentioned is them. Like I'll be down in the, like just like worst season ever, and they're just like, man, talking about this one that was like 5 ago that I did really well, because that's what they saw. They saw me, you know. And some people even say having a great year because they've just seen those couple good ones, and you're like, well, not really, but I've realized now that no one cares where you like. No one counts your losses in this game. They only count like your good ones. So it's not stressing out about, you know, having those bad ones and not worrying about them. But a lot of it is like with what you said about the older guys, that there's a turning point too where you actually get over it and start going the other way where you know what I mean? The younger guys are like more knowledgeable, but it's all like situational with like finances, where you are in your life, what you have going on, like all of these things that you have like are just monstrous.
All
in
the
fishing.
outside
All the
aspects,
outside aspects have to kind of roll into one. And like I've worked hard on like all of those outside things because my life's been so chaotic kind of when I moving to America, trying to figure it all out. It's like taken a long time to be like, I got to get this together, because like I've just got in, like I went from like a very not like sort of like stable life, like had my stuff together for a young guy in Australia. Like I had full-time job, I'm tournament fishing, I'm successful, I'm doing this, I had a house, I had my boat and truck, I had a shop, I had my things in line, and I was kind of I was like getting to a stage where I was just like I was just having consistent good events all the time in my tournaments there, because all of those things were together. And now it's just like poof, blown up into a million pieces, and I'm in a different country, and it just took so long to like get those pieces together. And like really like Kayla coming into my life and everything, it was incredible, but we still had like the back of the truck, living in someone's stuff everywhere. No, all of these little things that you're just like constantly making it hard. And then after the win, just breaking that little breakthrough, it's like that thing of like having your own place, your shop, just the things together, and you keep putting those things together, like your home life, your relationships, your friendships, building stuff with people like you and successful people around you that are positive, and friendships. And then it's like peace, peace, peace. And then that even helps you on the water when you're talking to him. I talked to Swindle, he's been through everything. He'll just like chip at you on one little thing, and you're like, okay, and you'll do the same. It's like there's just so many things that like, for me, all of the things have to be right for me to like have like a clear, like I can just fish now. And like, and when I went having that sporadic thing, like I was just fighting every day, just hoping I like can get on something and figure it out, because after that, it was just like kind of crazy. So it was like a grind trying to win and trying to get that in that position to where I can get everything together. And it's only like since the end of 2000, last 2 years, that I felt like that's what I've had.
That's a perfect segue. into the rest of what I want to talk about in this conversation. And I'm going to lead into it kind of from this event, and then we'll go down your life of Australian fishing. One of the things that cracks me up all the time is that one of the things that you're most confident in doing in bass fishing is throwing a jig. But you had never thrown a jig in your entire fishing career until you came to America.
Yeah.
Which was like, what, 13 years ago?
Yeah.
2014.
2011.
11 was when you first came over.
My first trip was 2009, but like then when I came back was 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you came to America the exact same year that I started fishing the Elite Series. So this would be like your 12th year in America.
Yeah.
You've only been throwing a jig for 12 years, but that's like probably what you've been most successful with. Like, it's what you won your first Elite event with. It's what you made your first top 10 with.
Yeah.
It's what bailed you out here at Lake Fork.
Yeah.
But like, how... I already know all these stories because we've spent hours and hours talking about pretty much nearly everything that has gone down. But I want everyone else to understand just kind of like how difficult it is. Like, and I'm just going to start with how much money you had to spend, because everyone relates to money. How much money you had to spend just to be able to stay here. Like, how much money were you spending in just to keep your? What'd you have like a sporting visa?
A sporting
right?
visa, yeah. I got that on my second year here. So,
but that's thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, like
every single time, and you have to continue to renew it.
Yeah. So for 9 years, my first 9 years before I got my green card, I'd spent just over $30,000 in legal fees just to be able to earn money in America.
Yeah. So you spent $30,000 extra dollars.
Yeah.
To do the same thing that the rest of all of us do.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just attorney fees and government legal fees. And that was like,
and that was when you didn't have $30,000.
Yeah, that was
spend.
Nothing. And that was like months and months and days and hours of gathering paperwork, meetings, attorney meetings, emails, like paperwork, inches high, like nightmare stuff, trying to put it all together.
And you had to do it every 3 years.
Yeah, yeah,
that's ridiculous. That is so crazy.
That was
So you touched on this of like how you were in a very comfortable position in Australia. You had gotten to the point where you, like, essentially you were the guy in Australia. You were at the top of your game. You were winning nearly every event over there. You'd won Angler of the Year over there. Like, well, that's what got you here.
Yeah.
Right. For the first time,
yeah,
is you had won the trip. Talk about that a little bit. But actually even go back a little bit before that, like how you got started fishing over there, and then how that transitioned into you wanting to come here and fish, and then how you actually got here.
Yep. Yeah, it's I had the fishing bug as a kid. For some reason, like I was very competitive, loved outdoors, loved sport, but for some reason, fishing was just like that thing. Like we all have that end up doing this. Mm-hmm. It's just like some people just get it. And some people are like, it's all right.
Yeah.
For me, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I got a fishing rod and I was on the beach and my family were playing games on the beach, cricket, doing all sorts of stuff on the sand. And like I sat on the beach with a fishing rod for 3 hours at like 5 years old. And like everyone was just like, you want to come up now? I hadn't caught anything. I was like, nah, I was just intrigued.
Yeah.
And then I caught a fish and Dad said, whatever you do, don't run backwards because there's cars on the beach where I was fishing. Mm-hmm. And I hooked a fish and I just sprinted backwards. And then I landed this fish and I showed like 30 tents either side of our tent, like knocking on their tent.
People
like
you didn't even know.
Yeah, didn't even know, just showing them what I'd caught. And they were just like, he's just got
kid.
some weird, good job. And I was just hooked from then on. And so I just had that, I just had this weird bug, but just didn't stop fishing from then on. I just, every chance I could, went fishing. My granddad took me fishing with my cousins. It was always an adventure. We went out to the rivers. Like in Australia, like you don't go to a hotel or camp. Like we were like as kids, we slept in sleeping bags under the stars, swags, which is like a roll up bed, little tents, like getting bogged in the mud, like just
way out
bitumen. West, like off the bitumen,
which is pavement. That's the blacktop.
No phones back then, no service, just kids fishing, like just loved it. It was always an adventure. And like my cousins loved it, but like I was like next level. Like when they're loving it, I'm setting lines at midnight and listening for the bells at night, and like they're all asleep and have eaten, and I'm hearing a bell and jumping out of my tent, bringing a carp in and killing it and rebaiting and putting it back out there and setting the bell and going sitting in my bed and like not sleeping for days. And they're like, you're psycho. And so just had that in me. And then, just getting dropped off at the lake. My mom was the biggest supporter of me by far. Like she just didn't want me going into town and doing, like, she knew what happened at like the skate parks and the in town and I just wanted to go to the lake. So she was the biggest champion for like getting up at 5 a.m. and making me, and I'd hook the boat up and she would drive us 45 minutes away with tents and swags and just drop us off. She knew we were like okay at the lake. Yeah. And that's where like all the best adventures and cool stories, and we got in more danger out there than she ever knew. Like it was
you, Chris and Maddie.
like bad stuff. But we were like learning. And I got into fishing clubs and stuff like that. Started like, I just wanted to go with anyone that'd take me. I'm like going fishing. I wanted to learn. And I just progressed from bait fishing, from digging worms, catching yabbies, doing all this stuff, to then lure fishing, then trolling, catching them on an artificial bait, freaking out, then caught them on a top water. And it was just, I had a great progression of like not just getting straight into a great boat and catching them on lures or whatever. Like I had that, and that reel from digging worms in that chook pen to all the way through little boat. Couldn't believe that someone let me in their boat because I was always on the bank. And then getting in a little boat and just to progress.
Like fell in love with that process.
Yeah, that process of just continually getting excited about that next thing that was like so cool because this guy taught me this or took me in his boat, or I was in a kayak. And we just chased adventures like nonstop until Zach, my mate Zach, he got his driver's license at 17, and like we were unstoppable. Then like we were getting into trouble. Like we're driving everywhere, anywhere. At 17, I'm 16, he's 17. We're just packing his truck up. We're going way out west, cod fishing on the river. We were just gone. Like, and
essentially the entire country of Australia was your playground.
Yeah, it was barra fishing, cod fishing, and like I worked 4 days a week at a tackle store, or I went to school 4 days a week, and I fished Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then sometimes Monday. Like I did that every single day from when I was like 13, 14, and fished all before that until like I moved here. Like it was a non-stop deal. But when I was about 15, they first started ABT, which is Australian Bass Tournaments. And the guy in a fishing club that I'd fished with and taught me to lure fish, he took me down there and we went and watched it. Yeah. And this one guy, Brett Gunderson, he brought in 3 or 4 Ranger boats from America. And so we walked down to the bank and he had these fiberglass boats parked up against the bank, and they were, and I was just like, holy cow. Like I'd never seen. Yeah. And so I had a 3.7 aluminium boat.
But what?
Yeah. Aluminum alloy.
Aluminium.
I didn't even understand what you were saying. I was like, that's a weird brand.
Aluminium. And after that, we decked it out like a bass boat, put all the decking, put carpet on it, all the rest of it. But from that day on, I watched that tournament. It was the grand final on Maroon Dam. And I watched it and I was like, I want to be a part of this. And I was good at bass fishing by that stage with lures. And an electric tournament come up at another lake. It was 3.5 hours away from my house, like out in the mountains. And my mum drove me there on like the Saturday, camped the night with me that night. And then the next day I got up and I fished an electric only tournament, and John Schofield, who I told you
Yeah.
about, who was sort of my mentor, he's like the Van Damme of Australia. He was the one that he just saw a spark in me, and he just like unloaded every bit of information that he ever could, and I just like he saw that I
Absorbed
was a
it.
sponge just soaking it in. If he told me, I did it perfectly, and did it until I had it
Dialed,
perfect, dialed, and then he would teach me more. And he taught me to drive, back to boating, like all of that sort of stuff. He took me every chance he could. But I fished this tournament, and he actually got me on a spot, and I fly fished. And on the last 20 minutes, I hooked up, and it was a giant bass. It was 4.5 pounder, which was a giant. Fought like crazy. I landed it, electricked back in. I came fourth in that tournament. I was 15 years old, and I won $500. And they gave me a $500 check. They interviewed me on stage, and then my mum, we drove back to Toowoomba, and like I had this $500 check at 15, and I just said, "This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life."
Did you give it all to her for gas money?
I kept every cent. I was a tight ass.
You spent it all in the tackle shop.
No, it went into my bank account. I was a tight ass back then. I saved like no one got $1. I just put it all away. It helped me in the end. But then just worked tackle retail from when I was like, I went into a tackle store, Mullet Gut Marine, our biggest tackle store, and I asked for a job, I think, when I was 15. And he didn't give it to me. He was like, "Oh, well, we're all full." And I went back in there and I said, "I'll work for free." And he was like, "All right, start cleaning." So I'd like dust the shells and just just loaded lures up. And then, when I turned 16, he gave me a part-time job, and I worked there on Thursdays instead of school.
Yeah.
And then I worked there like on Saturday, Sunday, fish tournaments, like I was just obsessed with it. That's what it took. And then, from there, I got really into the tournaments, just fished them nonstop, fished as a co-angler for a year, and started fishing as a pro out of my little boat. And then that's when the prize for our grand final, like our classic, was an expenses paid trip to America to fish a tournament of your choice in the US. And so once I realized that that's what it was, I started watching and before that, just learning techniques. It was on ESPN back then. So you had to wake up on a Saturday morning, and it would be the Bassmaster Elite Series on ESPN. And I'd get up in the morning and watch it. And one of them was Fred Rombanis winning the tournament on Lake Murray on the Frog.
Yeah.
And just like the way he reacted and how big it was, like I'd just get butterflies, like just feel sick in my stomach.
You
just
wanted
watching
to do that.
Just wanted to be a part of that. And, a lot of the story behind is everyone just kept telling me that I would never do it. My teachers, people around me, friends, everyone thought I was crazy. Tournaments were unheard of. Making a living was unheard of. I missed my graduation. I missed my my grade 12 deal. I missed birthdays because I was tournament fishing. Going from when I was 16 to when I was 26, I didn't miss a single Australian bass tournament. And
It's crazy.
Nothing.
10 years.
10 years.
16 to 26.
Yeah, 16 to 26, 10 years, I didn't miss a single bass tournament. And I fished every single one from basically 3 different states. And then we had AFC, which Steve Morgan, he was the guy that started ABT, came to America. He saw Bassmaster FLW, and he came back to Australia, and he started our tournaments and tried to emulate what they had. And so, that was the goal. And it's taken me a long time to shake it, but because I get the feeling still now, I had it even on the weekend, is if I don't catch them and I'm not doing well, I feel like I'm going to lose absolutely everyone, and everyone that ever doubted me is going to be right. And I'm going to fail and not, when I was 16, when I'd fish a tournament, it was like my life depended on it. I was like, if I don't catch them here, there's nothing else that I can do. This is the only option. And I would take it so hard when I wouldn't do good, because there was no other options. And it's taken me that long to it takes me a long time to throw it, because you've just been that much and that much wanting it that you have to stop yourself and be and it's going to be all right. Everything's good. You haven't caught them before, and then it's still going to be okay.
You were the guy that said earlier that nobody ever remembers your bad ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was
you can't get worried about like other people saying that you're never going to do it and being worried about your tough events.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because just like you said, nobody ever remembers those.
yeah.
They're only going to remember the
The good
ones that
ones.
you've done well in.
Yeah, it was
So
like
just make them all good ones.
I know, yeah. But back then, like they were like the people that told me I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
like they were my motivation. Like that's all I thought about is if like
To
I
prove 'em
don't do this, like they're right. And
Yeah.
they drove me so mad. They told me I couldn't do it for so long that I was like, there's nothing that I can do that is gonna stop me to make them right. Like if I fail, they're right. And like I just wasn't gonna let it happen. But
And you, like, people need to know this because there's probably some people that don't. When you say bass in Australia, they're not largemouth. They're not smallmouth. They're
Yeah.
not spots.
yeah.
They're really more like a white bass.
Yeah.
Like they're more like an American like white bass.
Yeah. They're a native Australian bass. They're our own species of bass, but they're like a striper and a white bass cross hybrid.
And they live more like them.
A little bit more schooly, like, but they do some
nomadic
things, but yeah, a little bit more schools and chasing shad. So like, but we like I bought Iaconelli's book, Van Damme's videos, DVDs, like trying to get techniques from America that
Did
would
it apply?
work on like spinnerbaiting. Like I learned everything I can off by spinnerbaiting from American books.
Yeah.
So that all came from here.
Is that how Glenn learned how to build bass?
Yeah, a lot of it came from that. Yeah, and then he just, he hardened and built him into an Australian style model.
Shout out to Glenn at Bassman.
Yeah, he's a champion. And he sponsored me when I was about 15, and then I won my first tournament on him when I was 18, and now they're like selling in America. Like it's
so cool.
It's a cool story. But yeah, I competed in Australia for 10 years till I was 26. At 25, I finally won the grand final, which would get you the trip to America. And I come second twice. I come second when I was 16. It's just weird how like fate like happens, like
you weren't ready at 16.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and when I thought it was the end of the world when I came second.
Yeah.
I was like, that was my shot. Like this was it, and I blew it. And then I came second like about 5 years later. And it was the end of the world. And then when I won it, it was just like all those things like that you look back on now, you're just like, I'm so glad I didn't win it then,
goodness.
Yeah.
You
I
just
won
came
it
over
right
here
when
and blew all your
you
money.
blew it
and
and
went
had
back.
went
Right.
home.
Yeah.
Instead, I won it when I was 26, came over and I fished the US Open, skied it was called the Skeeter Trip of a Lifetime. I went to the Skeeter factory, we went to Bass Pro Shops, and like this was like my dreamland for an outdoorsman and fisherman. I could think of anything. I could think of America, and I had no idea it was like this incredible. I was like, this is the greatest place on earth, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to come back.
Yeah.
And
so how long were you here on that first trip?
I was here for 3 weeks. I fished Lake Fork, which is crazy, and I fished with Lance Vick
That's so
on
crazy.
the first day. And then we caught him, and then we did a trip here, and then we went back to California. And this is what's crazy is Gary Boyd is the American that used to come to Australia and fish for barramundi, and he used to take some of the trips. So the Aussie would win, and he's older guy, but loved coming to Australia and catching barra, and he'd fish like the top 150 and stuff. Like he'd done really well. He's involved, but he lived in Reseda, California. And I was about 23 years old, I remember, and he came down to the bank, and I didn't know him. I was in Australia, and I'm sitting there, and he like had a word with me saying like, you need to come to America. And I was like, oh yeah. Like I was like younger, and I was like, but I didn't believe him sort of thing. And he was like, I've watched you fish, and like you come over, you can stay at my place. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like I was just at a stage where I was like, that seemed like saying I'm going to fly to the moon. Like, like even the trip to America was like, yeah, that sounds cool, but like, what even is that? Like, I didn't even know. I've never even been on a plane. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm not going to America. And so he did that, and then I won the trip, and did the trip over here. I went to the US Open. Just crazy stuff happened. I fished with Fred, and I caught him, and the whole day I caught him with Fred. I just pumped him for questions. I was like, where's this? Well, how does this work? Where do you fish as a co-angler? Where are all the tournaments?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just asking him, and I whacked him, and he just kept saying, man, you've got what it takes. I can see it. He's like, I fish with tons of people. He's like, you've got that thing. And he's like, you should come back and try. And I just got a good rapport with him and had the best day ever. And so literally I flew back home to Australia, and I was like, talked to a few people and talked to my friends and family. And then that's when I got friends with kind of Casey Stoner, the MotoGP rider. And I got to fish with him and Jace. Jace actually lined it up because he knew Casey had lived overseas, one of the most successful sportsmen in Australia. And I got to fish with him. Yeah. And Casey said, mate, if you want to make it in fishing, like, you can't stay in Australia. He's like, if I stayed in Australia as a MotoGP champion, like, I'd still be working at the MotoGP shop kind of thing. Yeah. He's like, you got one life, man. You got to freaking just have a go. Like, you got to go. And I was like, holy cow. Like, it was so scary. I was just like, but everything told me, like, just do it. And I decided to do it, and I sold my truck. Had like a nice truck, sold it. Had a Skeeter 190 with a 150 Evinrude on it. I sold it. And then I sold like a lot of my fishing tackle. I sold like anything that I ever had that I was going to use. And then they did like the tournaments, Bassin tournaments, did a charity event for me, and we like raised like 20 grand.
Pretty much just like full start over.
Just full, like, gone, everything gone. I had nothing. Yeah. I went from having everything, and then I had the house that I bought when I was like 18 just off retail wage, and I got people to rent that, and they rented it, and I packed one suitcase, had all my tackle boxes in it, and then the other suitcase had clothes and reels in it, and then it had a rod tube. And I hopped on a plane and
flew across
one-way ticket to it was a both-way ticket for 89 days, and I flew into LA, and I like walked up.
You could only stay for 90.
I only stayed for 90 days, and like I walked up the runway deal, and Gary Boyd was standing there waiting for me. He was in his probably 70s, and he was the only person I knew. I just emailed him back and forward. And he was waiting at the top there, and he said, let's go. And we put my stuff in his car, went back to his house, and that day we hopped in his boat and we started fishing. And he just started teaching me day one. That day we went straight out to Pyramid Lake, and he started teaching me to drop shot.
God. So crazy. You literally went all in.
Like that.
That's the cool. I think this is the first time I've heard that story. Like pretty full through on it.
It was there was no backup plan. There was no nothing. And what's like, the craziest thing is, like, I pretty much ran out of money by like the end of that year because I had to fly back and forward 4 times.
Yeah.
So I flew
every 89 days.
I flew back. So I did it 4 times in 1 year, and that like took up all of my money, and I was jet lagged, and it was.
Could you imagine trying to do that right now?
I just never do it.
Cost you triple.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. Just thinking about doing it was just crazy, but. So much stuff happened in that, and in the end, after all of that, I lost contact with Fred, and he was the only other person that like I had his email, and that was it, and like he wouldn't answer. Like I probably wrote it down wrong or something, I couldn't get on it. And I met Julie, and they had Jackson. Jackson was like River now, this little baby, and I was just like, Fred was just like my man, like the way he fished, and like that day we had and everything.
After watching him on ESPN,
just all of the stuff. And I fished in California with Gary for like almost that whole year. And then in the end, like I'd almost run out of money. Everything was done. And it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm like, I was just in California. The tournaments weren't huge. The tournaments were on their way down, and it was like full recession. Like no one could help you with anything. Yeah. You just couldn't get any help. And I had a borrowed boat, Ben Jarrett back in the day. Yeah. I got onto him with an email, and I met him one day, and he said, if you come over, I'll lend you a boat while you're here. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things was me and Gary drove all the way from California to Texas, picked up my boat, watched Van Dam win the Louisiana Classic, and then we drove back. That gave me like sat in the stands, like watching Van Dam win. So I had that boat, but then towards the end,
sucked.
towards the end, Yeah, watched you do it. Like that was when I first, and I messaged you on Facebook that year and said, "Hey, I've got a Nations boat and it's got a number on it." And I said, "Is this your number
I remember
boat?"
that.
And he responded back to me like some random kid, you know. And then I was done. I was it was over. Like I'd had all of this stuff happen, and I was like, I wanted to go home. It was all over. Like the whole thing was over. I was gonna go back to Texas, drop my boat off, and sell the truck, and then fly back to Australia. And I hadn't seen an Elite Series event, and I just learned to drive. I just learned to drive on the other side of the truck and everything. And I'd followed Gary everywhere and had this GPS. And I looked at I found the website, Bassmaster website, and it said next Elite Series event, Lake Murray, South Carolina, in like 5 days. And I seen the address. I punched it into the GPS, and it said like 2 days and 10 hours or whatever. South Carolina, Lake Murray. And I was like, all right. So I like got in the truck, filled it up, and I just started driving. And I like at one stage, I remember I was driving across, and I was like in Arizona or somewhere, and I realized that like not a single other human, not a human in the whole world knew where I was. And I was like in the middle of the desert driving, and I just had this realization like, what am I doing right now? Like I was just driving across. Like back then,
I know
it was
one
like,
person in this entire country.
yeah, I knew one person, and no one in
doesn't know where
Australia.
you
Yeah,
are,
like
then.
no one knew where I was. Anyway, I went all the way there. I got there, and when I got there was just cars like packing in, just people driving in, and they had this sandcastle of the huge largemouth bass that had welcome like Bassmaster Elites, and I can't get a park, and there's people like flooding the stage, and I'm like, holy crap! Like walked up just by myself, and I'm like walking up there, and I'm just watching, and there you guys are about to weigh in. And then I watching them weigh in, and I'm like, man, I wonder if Fred's gonna weigh in. And I'm sitting there, like in the middle of that crowd.
Oh, wow. That's when Casey won.
Yeah, Casey won.
That was our last event of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it must have. Yeah, would have been the end of the year, or like towards the end of the season.
Very end of June.
And I'm like, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it, and someone goes, Carl. And I'm like looking around, and it's Julie Rumbana. She's like, Carl? And I'm like, yeah, Julie. And she's like, yeah, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on.
I absolutely
have
no
like,
idea.
And she's like, Fred, you got to come and see Fred. And I'm like, oh yeah. And so she like got me, and we went down. Fred weighed in, and like, Fred just sees me, bro, what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, I'm telling him the story. He's like, are you kidding me? Like he had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I've sold everything. I said, I think I'm going home. He's like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm going to go and like just drop my boat off and then like head home. And he's like, just come back to Oklahoma with me and stay at my house and we'll go fishing. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And then it started again. Like I got back going.
Process started all back over.
Yep. Next minute I'm fishing with Fred, and he's teaching me how to frog fish, teaching me how to jig fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like going again. I'm like, got the spark. Like, oh, I'm back in. And then like little things just kept happening that like just kept me going.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Essentially living just on the edge.
Yeah.
You
On
don't
the brink
quit.
of going home.
You don't quit.
Yeah.
Like that's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
With your whole story, and the whole thing is just like
Fear
you
my
find.
heart.
Yeah. And that kind of makes even more sense now. It's just crazy to see like your persistence and your perseverance in those things. Like there's so many times like me, like if you don't love it, and you've said it before, like if you don't love it, like you absolutely love it, you'll cop out.
Yeah,
There's so
love
many
it.
times during your story I'd be like, well, all right, like that was a good run. Peace out.
Yeah.
Like, but you didn't. Like that's a testament to like who you are as a person, and that you found like a thing that you truly love.
Testament to the addiction.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I tell
sure.
people like the bit of luck that I've had is that I found fishing, that I found something that I love that much. Like not everyone has that. Like that's a lucky thing that I found.
Yeah.
Like people are like, what do I do? And I'm like, if you don't know what you love right now, spend every second of your day trying to figure out what you do actually love. Because once you do that, then everything else is kind of like going to come into place, because even if you're going to battle it, as long as you're chasing that thing that you absolutely love, it like doesn't really matter. But most people that I find that are like a little bit lost, they don't quite know what they love, which I understand, because like not everyone just had like it's kind of difficult. It's just weird that like some people like I got a bite on something and it went on into my rod and my heart raced and I was like, what the hell? And I set the hook and my whole life changed.
Your body is like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
It was a cool feeling. I want to do that again.
I want to do it again. Some people like get that bite and they're like, that was cool. And then they're going to read a book or something. But like it's not them, but they have trouble finding like that thing that like, this is 100% what I want to do. And that's where you're going to find every bit of happiness. But if you don't know what it is, you just the only thing you can do is try and spend every second you can figuring out what that thing is.
Yeah. Kyle's still waiting for that bite.
Yeah.
He's still waiting for that feeling.
I'm still waiting for it.
He could like fishing. You would like fishing.
He would really
if you
love
get
it.
a bite.
Yeah. He would really love it. He would love deep cranking if he would get a bite.
I literally was watching you guys yesterday. I was just like, that looks so fun. I just want to do it.
You got some really good videos, though.
Yeah.
You were quick on your feet and got some videos.
Back to like what I know.
I might get the camera call. It's a big one. Don't mess it up.
Oh, freaking fishing! There is something interesting, like trying to explain fishing to somebody, and like you can't really, and like trying to explain just the act of fishing is
tournament
different,
fishing,
but like just in general, but like. If they get a fish on, like if they catch a fish, there's like a weird feeling of like getting that fish in the boat.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you set the hook and like, it's funny because like it's still to this day, I see you guys set the hook and it looks so sick. Like it looks dope. Like a jig or like any kind of hook set.
What about when Vandy Hammer
and
sets
then
the hook?
I see a camera of me setting the hook and I'm like, oh my God. Like, because in my head, I picture it just being epic.
Like, just
Yeah, like,
It's like that meme,
yeah.
the meme where it's like how I feel like I look when I'm running versus how I actually look
it's
when I'm running.
seriously that. But like it's funny to see like that. Like
That's
if
just from
someone
like,
catches a fish, like they like it's addicting. Like it is addicting. It's fun. Like until you catch that fish, you don't know what it's like. And I still am trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
What a 6
I
pounder
wonder why
feels
that
like.
is. I think it's like hardwired in your brain, like an ancestral thing.
Yeah, it's a bit of like success. It's a bit of like unknown.
Like
What's
a-
it
like a
gonna
survival
be? Like,
thing
And then
almost.
you're getting it. You're fishing for food.
Yeah,
know,
like your
that's
brain clicks.
yeah.
Like, hey, that's a survival skill.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you should do that again.
yeah.
Do you get that same
So you
feeling when you
continue
build a
getting better
fire
at
though?
I mean, there's a little bit of a sense like when you
Yeah.
build a fire
It's
of
like
like
success.
you know, and there's like, have you ever been around a fire and not had a sense of comfort?
Yeah.
Really?
Trying to think of other like
Yeah.
instincts
I mean,
that would be.
except
It
for when
was-
you were like 18 and the cops
Like
showed up.
definitely not everyone has it because like I spent like I don't need to catch another fish the rest of my life as long as I get to like show someone else and watch them catch a fish. Like I love it so much that I just want someone else to. No, like I know what you're saying. Like I do want to catch every fish that swims every day. But if I couldn't do that,
Go ahead, go a
like
week. Don't catch a bass for a week.
No, I'll go crazy. I can't do it. I've wanted to. I want someone else to feel what I feel, and
Yeah.
not everyone does it. You know,
Yeah.
but like it was what's frustrating for me as a kid. I couldn't believe that everyone didn't think it was like the sickest thing ever. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I would take them, and most of the time they were like, "This is cool," but like I got a lot of crap and a lot of like you were just you fish like it was weird. Like I was a weird kid. And now it's cool. Like your kids, they have the bass boats and
Yeah.
everything. I'm like, you didn't.
It's like a cool thing in high school.
Yeah, it's
now.
the coolest
You don't have to
thing,
park your
yeah.
boat in the back lot and like try to hide it.
Yeah,
Because you're going fishing after school.
Yeah.
But do you
Yeah.
think on that like reverse side of you saying finding what you love, and now it's like not that you almost like are not tricked, but you feel like you want to like it. You know what I mean? Like you see like the externals of how awesome it is.
Like
But,
people
like, you
see the
don't-
trucks and the boats.
Yeah,
and,
but
like,
you don't like love fishing. Like
Oh,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
You don't love the
that's the thing that's
process.
interesting. Like seeing you, like
Oh.
I love the simplest act of fishing versus like I love having a nice boat. I love having the
yeah.
cer
True.
stuff. Like
There's
And
a
that's
lot of
the-
that.
there's
yeah.
a very big
Well, that's
difference in that, and it
huge.
goes like in every act of everything. Like,
Yeah.
do you love the thought of it, or do you literally love like it down to the simplest form of what you're doing? And like
Yeah.
hearing you say like I was a weird little kid that would like wait and not sleep and hear the cart bell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff that's like, that's when you see like that. Oh, he like really genuinely loves this.
Like most people, like if you fish with me or Brandon for a week, you'll hate your life like more than anything.
Yeah,
like,
because like you guys catch fish and
no, because we don't. Like practice with us for a week on this week, or on a rough lake when we are standing up and casting and not catching anything. For like we will fish daylight till dark for 7 days straight, not catch a bass, and go back the very next morning knowing that like we're probably going to change. Like now they're going to bite. Now we've got a chance. And people are like one day, I've seen them half a day, and they're like, this sucks. Like it's a weird thing like that you just got to have in you. And like, but I like taking people, just take them out, good time, and they catch a fish. That's a different story. But like ours, when you're trying to do what we're doing, there's like 90% of it is like just not that fun. Like as in, it's a grind, it's hard work, and but it's not a grind to us because we just love it. But for someone else, they'd be sitting there like, "You're so crazy. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
They just pick up and run 40 miles in like super rough water and just beat and just get soaked, and it's freezing, and then it pours rain, and you're like, we're not going in. Like,
you used to think that like when 30 miles, did that used to seem like that was like nearly an impossible amount to run in a boat?
Oh yeah.
Like I remember at home, like on Coeur d'Alene, running from the north end to the south end felt like a monumental feat.
And that's
like that was an amazing thing,
right?
And I'm like, that's a 20-minute
run.
run.
Just pick up and go.
That's
when
nothing.
I realized that last time I was in Australia, we're in a Matty Langford's bass boat on one of the bigger lakes that I fished, and like in my boat, I used to say like everyone, you would be waiting for takeoff, and I'd be like, they'd be like, "Where you going?" I'm like, "I'm running to the timber," and they're like, "What?"
Whoa.
Yeah, you're going up the. I'm going up the Boyne. They're like, "Be careful, man." We ran there in like 5 minutes in Matty's boat. Like we just ran up and turned right, and like the arm's just up there as low. I was like, this lake seemed a lot bigger when I was younger, but it's just back then it was smaller boats, and just I don't know, things seemed.
It's your perspective of it. Like it seemed like such a foreign, like unknown land.
Yeah,
and then you go back home, and like that was not nearly as far as or intense as I thought it was.
How has like bass fishing, that scene in Australia, changed since you've left? You've been back and seen a little bit of that, correct?
Yeah. It's still going good. It's going strong. It's had some like ups and downs and stuff, but I worked my whole career in Australia. I was on TV, fishing shows. I almost bought the tackle store. I thought I was going to like sort of lose everything when I like moved to America. I was like, man, all that, I did everything, and now I'm just sort of like walking away from it. The coolest part about it all is like the people behind me and the fans and family and everyone like got behind me more than anything. It was like a bit of a like Aussie taking on America kind of thing, where I thought that I was just going to sort of like get washed away in like the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see that, and then it gave like a lot of the fishermen there like a big spark to be like, holy cow, like he did it, like I can do it. And then like other Aussie anglers started coming over and fishing and doing well, and before COVID, it was like sparking up really good, and it's awesome to see my cousin Matty Langford. Like he's just dominating everything over there.
Well, and he came here.
Yeah, came here, and he almost won the Bass Nation Championship
on Hartwell.
Yeah, on Hartwell.
What place did he finish? Third.
He was sitting in third, I think, going in the last day, which would have got him a classic berth.
Yeah,
dang.
He barely made it making the classic.
So a lot of the techniques and stuff have just like transferred. The swim baiting game sort of came a little bit and went into Murray cod. Like some of the stuff that I got to see firsthand started to like get more exposure over there and get a little bit more mainstream. But yeah, it's getting bigger and better. One of my things that I really want to do is like, I don't want to be like, the only Aussie. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I just want to be the only Aussie that did this or whatever. Like, I want to try. Like, I know how impossible it is, and I went through the bit of the storm. I don't want everyone else to have to do that. I'd love to talk to Bass and ABT and they almost had it, but it's gone away now, but just have a little bit more of a direct path to get people to just have a better experience when they come here and have a better shot at, like, fish in the opens or just.
Do they have a Bass Nation team?
They did, but it's gone away now. But they they need to, like, sort of get that Bass Nation started back up, like what Maddie got in, and like just have an avenue. And like, even it's so impossible for them because, like, what are they going to do? Like, there's no boat, there's nothing. Like, how do you get your tackle? So like, if I could be a part of it, like, they could use my boat or something like that, like what Maddie did, or just have my contact to be able to do it. But Aussies just want to, like, experience it over here. They go home with so much motivation and brains just going, they're just thinking of all the stuff they want to fish.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How, I mean, I guess it's kind of a little bit different, but do you think there will be another Aussie fisherman in the elites within the next 10 years? Is that a realistic thing?
It's realistic, but it's like
that past.
Just
the talent pool is there.
They're definitely talented because they're such all-round anglers. They're really good at catching, like, a little bit of everything. But it's just whether someone's got the ticket to be able to like go through the storm. That's going to be the and I'd like to be a part of being able to help and make it just a little bit avenue, just a little bit, so they don't have to go through the crazy stuff. But I think it's definitely possible.
Gosh, there's so many more stories we could talk about. But we've already been into this for an hour and a half. And one thing I want to talk about just a little bit is the fact that you are a fairly new father. And how has that, and I mean, this may be for some personal study reasons, little information. How has that changed your outlook on your tournament fishing? Like, how's that affected you? Because I've heard you talk about it some, but I want everyone else to kind of hear, like, how that just mentally changed your outlook on everything.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to explain because people have explained it to me before, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure it's great, and you just can't fathom that you could have that kind of love and joy, like, in you for anything. It's impossible to even imagine. And so without kids, like, I can't believe how, like, not selfish, but like how you just had kind of if you don't have kids, you've just got you, and you worry about what you're going to do. What are your dreams? What are you going to do to have fun? What are you going to do for work? What's going to be the next adventure? It's all a little bit all about you, how you're going to be happy. And like, when this thing that you made gets born and you've got it in your hands, like, nothing you think about for yourself ever again. Like, it's just like, none of that external sort of stuff matters. You're just like, and so for me, it's like, when I've been on the water, when I get that feeling of like, I'm going to fail, I'm going to lose everything because I've lost everything twice over here. I've gone fully bankrupt. I've had to go home. I've gotten kicked out. I've, like, got my dream and got kicked out of the elites. Like, that's just a whole nother story. Like, I've lost things twice. And all of those times I thought, if I lose that, it's the end of the world. And I've always dug myself back and it's been fine. And I'm like, why did I spend all that time, like, stressing and worrying about that when it ended up working out all right anyway? For me now, it's like, when I was out there fishing, I got that little glimpse of, like, I'm 3 fish, I'm going to come 70th, I'm dropping in the points, all of that, just that little bit of negative energy that wants to grab you all the time. It's like the devil's just, like, trying to, like, get a hold of you. It was just like, I'm going to go home and kiss River and hug Kayla when I get home, and I've got my camper and I'm fishing the elites right now, and and she's just at home and she's happy, and it's just like, I felt my shoulders just be like, and it was like, fishing, like,
I'll go flip a jig.
I'm gonna go fishing. Like, life's good, and it's like,
it's made a positive impact.
It's just a huge positive impact, and like, I just feel it's not even it's not even explainable. It's like, I don't even want to like everything is 1,000 times better, but I almost don't want to do anything without them too. Like they make everything better. Without them, like I don't really want to be grinding doing it, but with them, I'll like run through a brick wall. Like I'm just like, they give me energy. They give me like love, like just, and then
like makes all those struggles worth it.
worth it. And you want to do that, and you want to like struggle, and you'll do anything in the world for them as long as they're okay. Like that, it's just it's a powerful thing. Like you're stronger, you've got more energy, you look with a better heart at different people, different things. Like especially a little daughter, it's another level that I never could have imagined I'd have. Like I thought, like I've done a lot in my life. I've reached pretty cool pinnacles. I've still got tons to go, but like then having her, it's just like I've just got so much ahead of me and so much more cool stuff to do. It's like, but not saying
and
that
a lot
it's
of
not.
headache.
It's not that. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done. And Kayla goes through 10 times more. Like she makes my time with River like amazing. Like I'm lucky. Like if Kayla wasn't who she is, it could be like a lot more stressful and a lot more. But Kayla's an amazing mum, and she makes my time that I get with River. But I literally like don't want to miss a second. Like I can't wait to get off the water, and like I want to fish all day, and then I like getting off the water. It's like just a joy, and you don't want to miss a single second of them growing up. I realize like people that have to work full-time jobs and be away from their kids, I'm like, that's got to be like tough. Like that makes me feel so lucky for like kind of the life that we're creating and setting up, that we get to spend so much time together, and I don't want anyone else to raise her. I don't want anyone else to influence her. I want me and Kayla to be like a bigger part of, bigger part of her life as they can. So
it's like all of like all that hard work just leads to that. Like getting up and checking the bells on the river, catching carp, rebaiting the hooks. Like all of that drive comes full circle to this child, and all of that allows you to then be able to be in a position that you do get to spend that time with her. That you do get to, that Kayla gets to travel with you. You get to have this Lance camper, that you're able to have this life that like you're fortunate to have. And
100%.
Me and Tiff talk about that. We're like we get to spend more time together than most people do. Because, and is it hard? Yeah, it's a really hard lifestyle. Like there's a lot of things that you miss out on, but there's also so much positive to it. And it all comes, it's all because like there was a level of selfishness, right? And I remember when me and Tiff first started dating, like we had that conversation of how selfish of a sport this is. Because it is. There's a level, because it's such a time commitment. That there's that level of selfishness. But it's having that balance, right? Of like knowing when you need to be selfish. But by being selfish, you're also being selfless. At that same time, right? Because you're doing it for a different reason. Before you were making those decisions based on how like you advance for yourself, but now you're making those same decisions, but it's advancing like your career for your family, right? Like making those decisions for your family, which is also my family, so don't forget that. But it like it's funny because for me, I mean, I haven't been around like a ton of like little babies, but even like just seeing her, she's my second cousin. So like there's a level of bloodline there, and it feels different than if it was just like someone's baby. Like just a fan baby at a tournament or something. It's like, oh, that's a cool baby. Like, But then I see Riva and I'm like,
she's part of me. Like, too.
Let me hold you. Like you're like a cool little baby. Like you're part of the family, you know? And it's like not even my kid, but I feel just like a little bit of that difference. Which is really cool.
And just like all I think about is like how major of an influence so many people are like from when you're that age. Like River's like a happy baby, and she's like,
Yeah.
and it's like that's not by like nothing's really by luck. Like we are trying to put our positive, good, happy vibes like into her, and you know, something I say all the time, like through through the different people, like I watch motivational things, I look at all of those positive different things. And the one thing that I hate is that like people, teachers in my life, like they kind of beat me down to where like I thought that I like wasn't good enough or didn't deserve to have these things. And they did it so much that I still believe I have to fight it every single day. I'm 37 years old, and I'm like, can be fishing out there and be like, yeah, of course I'm not going to win. Like that's not for me. Like because this is too good. Like I shouldn't be able to do this because they've beat it into you so bad. And then there's other people that their family and their people have like talked them up so much that you can do anything, that their mindset saying I can win this. Like yeah, of course I can. And then they win. And so like for me to win and do, I've got to, I'm in a like the fight of my life the whole time. And I'm like, I hate thinking like someone else did that to me almost a little bit, where Gary V and when you talk to him, his family just told his parents were like, you can do anything that you want. So like
almost to a fault.
Yeah, to a fault where he's so confident, but like that confidence results in like continual press forward. And when you get shut down, it's not why me? Or of course that would happen to me.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, next thing. Like I'll just win the next thing. And not like let that take you down, where like I've gotten so lucky that I had some sort of fight in me, like why fear my heart is my thing, is because my heart got me just through those things of like, maybe I can do it, maybe I can, and like my confidence and everything is built up, but like I would be tenfold ahead of where I am now. I can't imagine if I had that confidence and that thing of like being told that you can do whatever you can, because I got told that I can't do anything, that I shouldn't do that, and you can't do that my whole life. So like I just look at River and I'm like, she's like a blank canvas, and like this is what we are going to paint on her is what she's going to come out, and like she's going to know that no matter what she wants to do, she's going to be able to do it. That's my number one thing. Like she's going to go through life saying, if you want to do that, do that. That's 100% it.
Yeah.
And no one in any form is going to like impose their will on her to say like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like our teaching system and all of that's a big part of it. It's just broken, you know.
Yeah.
I knew how to catch fish, cook them, tie knots, camp, light fires, make tents, drive across the country, back boats in, and I was considered like the dumb kid of the school.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I just felt everyone just said I was like this dumb fisherman. And I was like, and I knew how to do all these survival things that were tenfold better than anyone, but they knew like mass and long division and stuff. And I was like, it didn't click with me. I didn't know it. And then I didn't like reading, but I could read a fishing magazine back to front, could write my own fishing article in 2 seconds, but that wasn't enough. You had to write about this. And I'm like, I can't even understand that. Like, no, it just all makes sense now when you look at it. I'm like, oh man, the whole thing is just broken. But like I got through it, and the thing is, why that adversity is probably good is because maybe if I did get told I could do anything or you could have anything, I wouldn't have had that fight in me when it did go wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There is a balance of
Yeah,
knowing
for sure.
like you're still gonna have to fight. You can have everything,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have to fight through some tough stuff. It's not gonna come to you.
You got
easy.
to earn it.
You're gonna have to earn it, and as long as you
sure.
can. As long as you can teach them that, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
work hard, fight through anything, get your back against the wall, get knocked down, get back up, but still be anything. I think she'll like that's the key. Not just say you can have whatever you want. It's gonna come to you like easy.
Yeah, you want to make sure that like she has something that she loves, that she's passionate about, that she's willing to fight for,
Willing to work
and
for it.
and willing to work for, and then that's really all you can ask for, right? And then you
Then the rest
try to
is
help
like,
navigate that
yeah.
as best you can. We're an hour and 40 minutes into this thing. I don't even know what time it is. We started this thing super late. So where can people follow you into these adventures, right? Like just let people know, and also let people know where they can get the Fear My Heart stuff, because you've got some super cool clothing. I wear it quite often.
Yep.
Just because I believe in what it stands for. So just give everyone a little taste of where they can get that stuff.
Yep. All my socials are just my name, Carl Jocumsen, just CarlJocumsen on YouTube, just Carl Jocumsen, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then the Fear My Heart, you're gonna see it ramp up on a lot of my stuff. Brandon's like hooked us up with a great company that we're gonna have like a lot. Just like we actually got Fear My Heart trademarked now in US, Australia, and Europe, and so it's ours. We've got it, and we're gonna really start ramping up and getting more product and stuff out there. And you can just get on fearmyheart.com and check out all the new clothes and apparel and stuff like that on the website. But yeah, it's Brandon's been a massive supporter of mine, and you know, just there's tons of stories when Brandon bought me a laptop back before he ever knew me and hardly knew me. I was trying to edit videos on a PC and it kept crashing on me. Or one of them, you said, "How come I can't watch that?" And like
it was glitchy.
Blurry. It was blurry. And I said, "I'm editing on this PC." And then at the next event, walked into the Douglas Open, and I think you either had it or we went to Best Buy, or like Tiffany walked in and gave me a bag and they bought me a MacBook Pro. And
I had Tiff go pick it up in Knoxville.
But yeah, no, the support has been incredible, and just having people like you and Kyle and just people that you can talk to about positive stuff and future and business and fishing and all of that. It just makes such a big difference. You got to get those right people around you. And that's what I've been one of the most fortunate things that I've had. I've constantly had positive people around me, and when they're not, they don't last very long around me.
Yeah.
And if I can't change them, then they're not around long. But I'm just lucky that I've had positive people around me, because that just makes such a big difference. So appreciate you guys.
You got any final words, Kyle?
I was gonna say we're definitely gonna. I feel like I was on the sidelines a little bit, but we're gonna need Carl back for like an episode, another one, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah. We have so many.
But
we have hunting stories. We have fishing stories.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, no, we can just we just need to just talk, you know, like, because there's so many stories.
We'll probably
pop
have
up
you
and
come back on when Josh is here.
Yeah, I'd like to be on with Josh, just because I know, like, Josh is not going to talk himself up at all. And
no,
I know,
we'll have
like,
to dig it out of him.
I know a lot of the inside stuff of just how, like, he's the real deal. He's been through the grinder, and his story is worth telling. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll get Josh on. We'll get you back on, most likely when we have Josh. You got any wise words?
I was just curious.
You or Vandy?
Where Toowoomba pasta is actually made.
At the Outback Steakhouse in America. by a 16-year-old kid that like shouldn't be cooking, probably.
Hate to break everyone's heart, but the bloomin' onion's not a real thing.
Yeah, bloomin' onion,
all these Australian
Toowoomba pasta. What
Pretty
else?
much nothing from there.
Bitumen Foster's isn't a thing.
See, I told you. Yeah.
Shrimp on the barbie isn't a thing.
You've never said that as like you went on a beach and
no
like, hey, throw some shrimp on the barbie.
No Australian has ever had those words come out of their mouth in a serious manner. In like, only that's actually I want to. Yeah, let's say.
If you were gonna cook shrimp on a barbecue,
get some cold prawns in paper. That would be what it would say.
Really?
Like cold prawns, they get like newspaper, and the guy just scoops cold prawns in it and wraps it up and gives it to you.
Huh.
That's what
Crocodile Dundee isn't real either.
Crocodile Dundee's not real. Dang it.
Steve Irwin was though.
Steve Irwin is the real deal. He was the real deal. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. We'll go through we'll have to do like a American Aussie like transfer crossover in one of them and just see how many different like versions there are of all the different sayings.
Yeah.
Like bitumen, pavement, spanner, wrench.
I mean, I've been hanging out with you for a long time, and I know a lot of them, and there's still
spanner. What was it, spanner?
Yeah.
There's still ones that come out of your mouth and I go, what? The bitumen one's one of my favorite ones. Like, when we were elk hunting this year, we started going down a gravel road, and it's just rough as all get out. And he goes, man, it's way better on the bitumen back there. I'm like, what? I'm like,
Please don't tell me that means
I'm
pavement.
like, bitumen? What does that even mean? He goes, like the pavement. I said, seriously? And then I tried to get it like all philosophy, like get the history behind like where it came from, and we couldn't really figure that out.
We got to hear more about the hunting stories later too.
We will
On the next episode.
And then maybe one time you'll come and you'll film a hunting episode.
I will be
with
on the
us,
next hunting
and we'll
episode.
actually have a video
I will.
about it.
It's going to happen.
Believe it when I see it.
Yeah, we'll
He needs to film the first elk, the bow.
start
Be
taking
sick.
bets on that.
You're currently on the more of a hunter side than a gatherer now with the turkey.
Yeah,
so.
turkey fell.
I believe in
turkey
you.
had what's coming.
Oh gosh, this is gonna turn into a trash talking episode
Yeah,
real
now
quick
it's
if we don't get off.
Keep it on the rails pretty
we've-
good though. I was
We've been
impressed.
holding back. Like one of us talks and we like want to just like cross over and just start giving you hell.
Yeah,
Like,
it
keep
can go-
it keep it even. Everything's going good.
Everybody play nice.
Everyone just say something nice about Carl. It's about him.
All right, I appreciate
All right.
you guys listening. This was awesome. Again, be on the lookout for a couple more episodes. We'll have Carl on again. We're gonna have Josh Douglas on next. Got some good ones coming up. Appreciate you guys listening to the Outdoor Burrito. Nice, Kyle. Nice.